I've been working in this area for about 28 years or so, and part of that time as a consultant, where we went around to cities and did consulting studies on what transportation system they should have. And I've worked in about 15 major cities like that, and I can't think of any place that I went where the client didn't know what they wanted before they started the study. And I thought we were going to get there in Seattle 10 years ago when they were doing this alternatives analysis for what we were going to do, because they started out, they said we're going to hire separate consultants for the bus alternative and for the rail alternative, and let them sort of fight it out in the arena of choice. And I don't know I forget what happened, but it just fizzled. And as soon as the sort of more powerful policymakers decided that rail was it was it. So, yeah, what can you say? It's sort of disappointing. I mean, we'd like to say that we as engineers and planners can go in there and give this totally objective thing, and they're going to take our advice. It doesn't happen very often. It doesn't happen very often. Now the question is, but you can make contributions. You certainly can make contributions. I don't want to be too cynical about it. But I saw a lot of bad rail systems go in, and haven't seen any bad bus systems, but there haven't been very many of those going in yet. One thing about a bus system is that if it goes bad, it's pretty hard to hide and take the buses someplace else. A bad rail system is a little more difficult. I worked on the Miami rapid rail system, where the official forecast was 202,000 people a day. That was the official forecast that they based their application for $1 billion from the federal government. And it got about 36,000. So, kind of a disappointment.
Was that Tri-Rail?
No, Metro Rail.
Questions, hold the button down.
Question was that Tri-Rail? Yeah.
Is there any bias to the federal government for funding of bus rapid transit over light rail, or vice versa?
No, I don't think so. The bias is not in the federal government, it's in Congress. And that's where these projects get picked. The earmarks in the bills is the way most of these projects get done. And federal transit, Gordon Litton, who was the previous administrator, he started this bus rapid transit thing. And but they're still going with it. So it survived administration change. Yeah.
I had a question about environmental impacts. On your little slide, you listed that they would use rubber tires. Aren't those then creating pollution problems where maybe a light rail would have steel wheels?
Mm.
And then it's just a follow-up question. In terms of fuel, most light rail use electricity, and there's an opportunity to have, like say, wind power or solar power with that. What's the...
Yeah, well, these buses are all going to have fuel cells. The buses are all going to have fuel cells. And maybe they will. Seattle right now is ordering hybrid buses to replace their tunnel buses. They have these tunnel buses now that are these dual mode. They're diesel out on the highway and then electrical when they go through the tunnel because of the fumes and stuff. And so these buses are 12 years old, and they were like 200 prototypes anyway, and they were built by these Italians that used to make airplanes that during World War II they put the airplanes out on the runways as decoys because they couldn't fly them anyway. So we have these buses are half as reliable as our next least reliable bus. They just can't wait to get rid of them. So they're testing a hybrid bus now that looks like it has enough oomph to sort of get through the tunnel and then back out through the tunnel, which is what they have to do. So they don't through route down there. They tested some sort of electrical things that could only get halfway through. But hybrids look pretty good in the interim, and the fuel cells for buses, they're getting really close. I mean, they have some, but I'm talking about commercially close and affordable. And the tires, yeah, there's going to be more dust, rubber dust from the buses for sure, but less noise.
I have an email
Oh boy, my first email question.
Right. This is from a gentleman at the City of Vancouver. Do you have any suggestions on using a Market Street, San Francisco type layout, running buses in the center of the right of way with skip stops as a first step to total BRT reconstruction, versus the Honolulu or Vancouver style with the skip stop buses loading from the curb?
Yeah, I like Market Street. I think it works really well. But it puts a lot of pedestrians out in the middle of the street as well. But no, I think that's a good option. Depends on the geometry of the corridor that you're looking at. I think that dictates what's going to get done more than almost anything. But that's a good point. Yeah.
Like the project you were working on in Miami, the busway there, do you feel like that was a result of poor promotion, like just a low ridership to begin with, or was it a density issue? Or?
Oh, well, it was a heavy rail system, actually. Yeah. Completely grade separated heavy rail system like BART and Washington Metro and Atlanta. Well, where's all this going? What the rules were then that if you had to get a certain cost effectiveness to be able to get funded, or at least get recommended for funding by the then Urban Mass Transportation Administration. So if you weren't doing your trips for $6 a trip, then you couldn't get funded. So the game was, if you could keep your cost estimate down and your rider forecast up, they're looking at this cost effectiveness number. That's cost per new rider. And those costs can get way out of line. And so the federal government is saying, well, we don't want to invest in something that has $30 per new rider. And so what people did was then sort of lowball their cost estimates and goose their forecasts so that number comes down to sort of under $10. I always thought when I was out there watching this that someone's going to go to jail. These people are robbing the federal government of $1 billion. They're defrauding the federal government, basically. That's what else can you say? They're cheating. So, but the thing is that if you didn't cheat, you got nothing. If you cheated, you might get $1 billion. So what do you think people do? I mean, duh. That's, I worked in Detroit, and you try to tell Coleman Young that he didn't have enough ridership on his line. Right, he wanted his $1 billion, and he got it. He got it before the study was done. It's like right in the middle of the study. Oh, here's your $1 billion, because Jerry Ford needed it for his campaign, brochure or something like that. I don't know. They never did get it though. He got it given to him, but they didn't actually get it in the end. Yeah.
It sounds like bus rapid transit and light rail transit will serve the same general purposes, but bus rapid transit is less expensive in most cases than light rail. I was wondering if you could talk about, say if that's the case or not, and if there is any situation where you would recommend light rail transit over bus rapid transit.
Yeah, I was really disappointed in Seattle when they didn't build the first leg from downtown to the university. Not just because I work at the university, but I mean that leg has huge demand. I mean, just huge demand. And even taking it to Northgate, say. And so they say, well, we're going to go south to show people we can do it. Well, I mean, if you can't do it north, you shouldn't do it at all, was my that's how I felt about it. I think a lot of it is, I feel that if you can get support for either one of these modes and get it implemented, go for it. I mean, it the differences are pretty small anyway, and I think, Portland, has done a great job with implementing a whole lot of great service. At the first line, I'll bet you if you did an honest analysis of it, probably people wouldn't have done it. If there was, some kind of objective person in the cloud that said, oh, no, I'm sorry, we're not going to do that, and then that may have been a big mistake the way it turned out. But, I think you have to do the study at each location and see where you can get the support. I think that like in the Seattle area, bus rapid transit might work really well going south because the corridor is so huge. So you can sort of spread out, and even going east as well. In fact, there's not very many places that rail would work in Seattle, I don't think. Although if we'd have built rail in 1970, like they'd planned, they voted on it twice, once in 68 and once in 70, and it got turned down. It needed 60%, which is really hard to get for anything, but it got turned down both times. And it would have been a BART-type system. It had been done a long time ago. It would have changed the whole city and the way it developed. And also, the federal government was going to pay for 2/3 of it. And we turned it down, and who got the money? You can't answer. Atlanta. That's our money. Because we had your equivalent of Mark Hatfield when we were doing this study. It was ours. He was chairman of the Senate Finance Committee. So we said, no, we don't want your $1 billion. Give it to Atlanta, and we'll just wallow in our congestion forever. It's hopeless out there. At least there's hope here.